June 28, 1914. An Austrian archduke takes a wrong turn in his motor car, bringing him face to face with an assassin. The shooter is Gavrilo Princip, a 19-year-old student demanding independence for his region of Bosnia. He pulls the trigger. That single gunshot erupts into a 4-year global conflict. By the time the dust settles, ancient empires are wiped off the map entirely, and nearly 20 million people are dead. Imagine for a moment we could go back in a time machine. If we stopped this one teenager before he reached that car, would we actually prevent the World War? The reality is, stopping him wouldn't have changed the outcome. The assassination was merely a matchstick. European powers had spent the previous decades actively building a massive mountain of dynamite, wiring the continent to explode. This map shows Europe in 1914. You won't find many democracies here. Instead, the continent is carved up into sprawling monarchies, controlled by a handful of rulers. In the German Empire, Kaiser Wilhelm II holds immense executive power and constantly worries about neighboring countries invading his borders. Over in Russia, Tsar Nicholas II struggles to maintain his grip on his empire. And ruling the vast British territories is King George V. These three men commanding rival global empires share a striking detail. They are first cousins. They belong to the exact same family tree, treating global geopolitics like a bitter family feud. To these monarchs, power is measured by the physical size of their empires. They pursue imperialism, using their armies to annex new territories, specifically to extract gold, secure raw materials, and exploit cheap labor to fill their royal treasuries. The very structure of 1914 Europe prioritized the expansion of the royal family tree over the stability of the continent. Millions of ordinary citizens were treated merely as tools to increase the immense reach and wealth of the crown. This chart shows the combined military spending of the 6 great powers of the era. To maintain these conquered lands, leaders relied on militarism, an obsessive buildup of weapons and standing armies. From 1870 to 1914, their combined military budget spiked by 400%. Britain led the pack with the world's most powerful naval fleet, using these massive warships to enforce control over their colonies across the globe. Because every empire constantly tried to capture more land, they grew incredibly paranoid. To protect their loot, they locked themselves into complex, secret defensive treaties, splitting the continent between the Triple Alliance and the Triple Entente. The strict terms of these treaties meant that when Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia to retaliate for the Archduke's assassination, they tripped in alarm. Russia rushed to defend Serbia. That forced Germany to step in to protect Austria, which dragged France and Britain straight into the fight. This rigid web of alliances perfectly wired the mountain of dynamite. A localized dispute in Eastern Europe immediately detonated the entire world. Why did millions of poor, unemployed factory workers and farmers willingly march off to die to serve the strategic interests of these monarchs? The answer is jingoistic nationalism. Newspapers and state-sponsored poets blanketed the public with extreme, aggressive propaganda. They convinced young men that enlisting was a selfless act, framing soldiers as gentlemen heroes fighting a glorious battle. The reality waiting for them on the battlefield stripped away that glory entirely. Men lived knee-deep in flooded, mud-soaked trenches, facing poison gas attacks, coughing up blood, and enduring unimaginable physical rot. The suffering wasn't contained to Europeans. The British Empire forcibly extracted soldiers from its colonies, using young men from places like India to hold the front line. Underneath the uniforms, these working-class men had no actual reason to hate each other. On Christmas Eve of 1914, British and German soldiers laid down their rifles, walked into no man's land, and celebrated the holiday together. They shared food, sang songs, and traded gifts. When their generals found out, they were furious. Commanders immediately ordered the men to stop celebrating and resume firing, threatening to execute their own troops if they refused to keep killing. The First World War was a brutal machine, where extreme nationalism and systemic greed forced millions of ordinary people to pay the ultimate price. As for how this conflict evolved into the Second World War and India's deeper involvement, we'll explore that in the next video.